Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be doing an oil change on a Ford 6-liter diesel engine. Now, doing an oil change on a diesel engine is pretty similar to doing an oil change on a gas engine, but there's a few differences. Now, this video will apply to pretty much all Ford diesel engines and most diesel engines in general. Now, of course, I'll be doing it on the 6-liter, my F350, but most diesel engines will be the same, with the exception of different filter locations and stuff like that. So let's get started. Okay guys, laid out here is pretty much everything you're going to need to complete the oil change. Now there's not too much stuff, but it is pretty basic stuff. So you're going to need your oil, of course. Now I need between 13 and 14 liters for my truck, and I'll go over weights and viscosities in a minute. You'll probably need a few rags to wipe up excess oil and stuff. You'll probably need a breaker bar or a long wrench. I like the breaker bar method with a socket. Socket size will vary depending on your vehicle. Mine is a 19mm. You might need a pipe to extend your breaker bar depending on how tight your oil drain plug is. You will need a big crescent wrench or a oil filter wrench, one or the other. I'd choose a crescent wrench. You'll need an oil drain pan large enough for the capacity of oil. And you'll need a funnel, and last but not least, you'll need a new oil filter, and I'll talk about that in a minute as well. Okay, now I'm going to talk about oil filters for a minute here. It's very crucial in these 6-liter diesels, and I believe in all of the Ford diesel engines, that you use OEM Ford Motorcraft filters. Do not go to Part Source or Napa or O'Reilly's or whatever your local part store is and just buy a generic oil filter. The reason is the oil filter and the oil filter cap, they fit together and they're used together. If you have one that is Ford and one that is not, they will not fit together and they will not properly fill and filter the oil going into your engine or cycling through your engine. It's kind of hard to explain. There's 100 videos on YouTube explaining it, but it is very crucial that you use a Ford Motorcraft filter and filter cap. And now for oil, I like to use Shell Rotella T6 synthetic oil. Always use synthetic oil, sorry about that, in diesels. Now as for weights, it really depends on what climate you live in. Here I live in Canada, Alberta. It's cold. We got winter like 5 out of 12 months of the year, 5 or 6 months of the year, it's cold. So our summer and spring, our warm season is very short. So you got to use an oil that is designed for your climate. I use 5W40. I know in warmer climates, guys have good success with like 15W40 or 10W40, but it all depends on what climate you live in. The Shell Rotella is a good oil just in general. A lot of guys like to run it in their 6-liter diesels, but everybody's got their own preferences. I would just always say stick with synthetic oil. Okay, I'm just going to quickly talk about weights here. So this is 5W40. Like I said, in cold climates, this is what I like to use. When I do my oil change, my next oil change, closer to the warm season, I'll probably do something with a little different weight, more suited for warmer weather. So, in terms of viscosities, 5W40 is a thinner oil than, say, 15W40, which is what a lot of guys run in warmer climates. So, in colder climates, you don't want a thick oil because it'll be harder to start your diesel, and it just won't run as smoothly. It'll take longer to warm up. With a thinner oil, it'll start much nicer and it'll warm up much faster. I'm also going to mention that because my truck is lifted, I do not need to jack it up or drive it up on ramps or anything in order to get under it to open the drain plug. Smaller cars and vans and even just stock height trucks, you might need to do that in order to have enough clearance underneath to get an oil pan or to take the drain plug out. But in my case, because my truck is lifted, I don't need to. Okay guys, so first thing that has to happen is we have to drain out all the old oil. So I've got a few oil pans here. Because my truck holds 13 to 14 liters of oil, that's a lot of oil. I don't have a drain pan big enough. So I'm going to have to switch two of them out. I'm going to be using a small breaker bar with a 19 mil, and I've got a pipe in case I need extra leverage. It's that simple to break it free. Now, just take your fingers, and twist it out and get ready. Now we're just going to let all the oil drain. Okay, so you can see almost all the oil is drained out. I've got 3 different pails here that I had to use, but once it's all drained out, we'll reinstall the plug. Okay, once all the oil is drained out, reinsert your drain plug, screw it in, and when you tighten it down, you just have to give it one little turn to tighten it down. You don't want to over tighten it, that's for sure. And just take a rag and wipe down the outside of the plug just to keep it nice and clean. Okay, so we're done step 1 of the oil change. Step 2 is to change the oil filter. Now in my case, my filter housing is right here behind the zip tie right here. So I've got to take that cap off and change the filter. Okay, we're going to start by taking the filter housing off. Take your crescent wrench, slip it over top of the cap, and just start twisting it. It should not be on too terribly tight. After a few twists, you should be able to take it off with your hand. Okay, once you let it drain for a minute or so, just letting all the oil drip off, take it, and I just like to have a bucket ready and just set it inside the bucket. Okay guys, so we've got this filter out of the truck. Now normally, if you had just a regular Ford cap and filter, you could just separate the two and put the new filter on. Unfortunately, this is not a Ford cap and it's not a Ford filter. So this whole setup is garbage. I had to go buy a Ford cap, and the Ford filter is right here, and they slide together and snap together like that. Okay, so we've got the new filter and cap here. Just got to slide it right on, push it down, screw it on, and then just tighten it down with the wrench. Okay, now that the filter is on tight, we can go ahead with step 4, which is to add new oil into the engine. So we'll take the cap off here. Just like that. Okay, so we've got the funnel in here, and we're going to start pouring our oil in. And as we're pouring, we're just going to check for leaks underneath and everything, and just make sure that we're not leaking out of anything, and we tightened everything down good and tight. Okay, once you got all your oil in, you can take your filter out. I just like to have a cloth here so you can set it on there and reinstall the cap. Okay, last thing we're going to do is check the oil with the oil dipstick. take it out, wipe it off, stick it back in, take it out, and take a look. And you want your oil level to be, I know it'll be hard for you to see, right between minimum and maximum. Well guys, that's it. I'm all done. Cleaned everything up and we're good to go. That's all. That's it for a diesel oil change. Hope you guys liked the video. Stay tuned for many more to come.